Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to today's Caffeine for the Soul. And today we're going to be rethinking business. And business is a really useful thing to rethink. In what I've seen in my work over the last 30 years, there are two fundamental reasons people build businesses. And they're both to do with money. Now, this is just a model, but I found it to be a useful model because it quickly delineates whether we're in business to solve a money problem, which actually can be solved with more money, or if we're in business to solve a fundamental misunderstanding problem. And the thing about a fundamental misunderstanding problem is you can't solve that with money, but it will dissolve itself in the face of a deeper truth. So that might sound a bit all over the place. So let me back up. In some ways, human beings are remarkably straightforward. We will always do what makes sense to us at the time as best we can, given the thinking we have that looks real to us. Now, since most of us don't think that we're innately happy, we don't think we're innately secure, we don't think we're innately free, it's the most natural thing in the world to look outside ourselves for security, happiness, and freedom. And culturally, the most popular place to look for those things is to money. So we look around us, we see people with money who seem happy, secure, and free. And we not only buy into that appearance, we assume there must be some kind of cause-effect relationship or a correlative element between the amount of money we think they have and the experience of life we make up they're having. Now, I mentioned before there's no such thing as business, which means that business can be defined in an infinite number of ways. The simplest way I've got to define business is that it's a vehicle to facilitate the exchange of value. So you put in value, usually in the form of time and creativity, and the business gives you back value, generally in the form of money. And the reason you would build a business as opposed to simply making a direct exchange by working one-on-one as an employee or a service professional is there's more leverage in a business. With a well-designed business, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, so you don't have to keep doing everything yourself. You're effectively putting your time and creativity into designing a goose. And if the goose is properly fed, it's going to give you access to a theoretically unlimited number of golden eggs on demand. But here's where it gets tricky. If you're trying to grow a business in order to buy as much power, freedom, or security as you think you need, the goose starts to take on some pretty monstrous qualities. It starts to get ravenous. It starts to get to the point where it needs to eat more and more in order to continue producing golden eggs. So not only does it begin to consume more and more of our time and energy, it needs to consume consumers. Now, that is messy, and when we notice it getting messy, instead of questioning the basic premise from which we're building our business, we spend even more of our time and energy looking for even more food for the goose monster so that it will keep laying more and more eggs so that we can be even more okay. We can be even more free. And before you know it, your life has become about creating golden eggs to buy your happiness by feeding more and more people to your business. Now, probably the most popular strategy for finding food for the monster is called service. We're taught that if we put our attention on serving people, they'll get interested enough in what we do to spend time with our business, which can then eat them up so that it can lay more golden eggs. So instead of service being the natural result of care, instead of service being a common sense way of creating value, it becomes a strategy for creating more golden eggs so that we can be safe, so that we can be more free, so that we can have more power. But because we don't see that the whole cycle is made up of insecurity, it gets to the point where you start worrying that if you don't keep finding enough food for the monster's going to turn around and consume you. And so the very thing that you created to help becomes the biggest problem in your life. Now, I want to be really clear. This is as much my story as it might be your story. So for the first 20 years of my career, I built businesses, but I did it in an attempt to keep myself safe. I did it to make myself happy. I did it so I would have more freedom. And I didn't notice that I wound up feeling more and more insecure, more and more miserable, and more stuck. Now, fortunately, there is a way out, and the way out, at least for me, was seeing that the fundamental premise that I was starting from was just wrong. I saw I was absolutely okay. I was born happy. I was intrinsically secure. I was already free. And it was only later when I learned stuff that it began to seem like security and freedom and okayness were correlated to a specific dollar amount in the bank. So you'd think at that point, well, then if you don't need that, why would you build a business? Well, here's how strategy 2 works. If you build a business from the starting point of already being complete, already whole, already happy, already safe, already secure, already well, then you begin in the unknown, the big nothing, the fertile void of the present moment. And in that nothingness, an impulse arises in you to create. It might be a song or a painting. It might be a book or a training. It might be a piece of furniture. It might be a space where people can go to make their work lives easier. It might be a service. It might be a product that would meet a real human need. And it would come from a genuine compassion for people who are stuck in the world, whose circumstances seem to limit their access to opportunities. Now, when you're building a business from that, what you're creating is not designed to create more golden eggs. It's designed to express something that wants to be expressed through you. It's designed to contribute to the well-being of the planet. And when your business is an expression of that desire and intention, something very different from the goose monster comes into form. When you look out at the world from a field of pure possibility, from a place of okay, you don't tend to see people as potential monster food. You see them as friends and family. You see them as brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, fellow human beings. I get that probably sounds ridiculously idealistic. But when we're not obsessing about keeping the goose alive, to keep ourselves safe, to keep ourselves happy, to make ourselves free, we just seem to naturally start to see places where we can share our expression. And we start to just notice people who would benefit from what we have on offer. We stop looking to reach arbitrary external targets. And we start looking more and more for opportunities to do what we do, give what we give, offer what we offer, and share what we share. And the business part of the business, the exchange of value, starts to take care of itself. And those businesses tend to grow, but they grow from a need. They don't grow into whatever form we think a business should take. It should have this many people, and it should be of this size, and it should be agile, but it should be solid and reliable. And there are so many ideas about what business should be. But when it comes to creating business from okayness, form follows function. So instead of continually trying to change the business into whatever shape you think is going to attract enough people to feed your goose, you might notice at some point you can't do it yourself anymore. There's just too much to do, so you bring in people to help. You might realize there's too much information to process and track with sticky notes and a pen and paper, so you'll implement computer systems. If you've got a creative vision of sufficient size and scope, you'll see that it's going to take time before it'll be self-sustaining, so you seek outside investment. So your business might wind up looking from the outside remarkably similar to one that exists purely to make enough money for its founders to thrive. But in this second case, it's all coming from what's wanted and needed in real time. It's coming from the best you have inside you. It's coming from your compassion, your love, your creativity. It's no longer coming from your insecure thinking, fear, and lack. It's coming from presence and possibility. It's not coming from a place of cleverly tricking people into being eaten by your monster so that it will lay enough eggs so that you and your loved ones will be okay. And here's the payoff. Anything that comes from presence, possibility, freedom, and love carries the flavor of its origin in everything it does. Have fun, learn heaps, and may all your success be fun. I'll talk to you soon.